5 things that will matter, and a daily pack rip. Here is your host, Kyle Elfrink.
Great to have you with us on this Friday, May 5th. To many of you, Cinco de Mayo. Congratulations, you can celebrate. Yesterday, I told you on May the 4th be with you that I wasn't really into celebrating that because I was going to wait for today. So today, let's all celebrate. Although, even if you're not into the whole Cinco de Mayo thing and the margaritas and the chips and all that, there's another thing you can celebrate today, which for me, believe it or not, I actually dig over the margaritas. I would dig this over the chips and salsa. Today, National Hoagie Day. So it's not all about the tequila and the guacamole. I love a good hoagie. So you know what? I'm going to celebrate both today. I think I'll have a cold cut sandwich, pile it up with some onion and lettuce and mayo, mustard, pickle, jalapenos, all that good stuff. Then I'll go get some margaritas. I'll celebrate both. Hopefully you can celebrate one of the two. If you don't want to celebrate either, at least you're here. Let's have some fun today on the 5-pack. Kyle Elfrink with you. Heather Klein is helping us out. Our pack break today is a brand new pack rip that we've got. We've yet to open a pack of cards from the 1990 Upper Deck set. Year number 2 of Upper Deck. Everybody talks about 1989, the Griffey Jr. rookie card, how Upper Deck changed the landscape of trading cards, and all of that is true. That 89 Upper Deck set, to me, is one of the 10 most important baseball card sets ever for what it has and for what it meant. Year number 2, I guess this would be the sophomore slump for Upper Deck. Still beautiful cards. Not a game changer anymore. They were kind of just repeating what they did the year before. But there is another first ever from this 1990 set. And we may pull it coming up later today in the 5-pack. So I'll tell you why this particular Upper Deck edition, 1990, is kind of critical to where we are in the industry all these years later. So we'll get to that coming up. Of course, before that, we have the 5 things that matter and the 5 things that will matter. 5 things from last night or the previous 24 hours that are on my mind. And then 5 things that will be on my mind over the next 24 hours, although I will admit today we're going to cheat a little, just a little, on the 5 things that will matter. Let's get things rolling on this May 5th with the 5 things that do matter. And I bet you I could ask you, dear listener, where do you think we'll start today? And some of you might say NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, NBA playoffs, something from the NFL. You're wrong. You're all wrong. For the first time ever, here on the 5-pack on the Better Sports Network, we will mention, wait for it, college baseball. But I think this is important. I think it matters. Here's why. College baseball, what the heck are we talking about? We got a firing in college baseball yesterday. Alabama head coach Brad Bohannon was let go. He's been the head coach at Alabama for 5 years. Okay, who cares? Coach, whatever. They're not one of the best teams in college baseball, nothing like that. Why he was fired is what's important here. Turns out last Friday, a week ago, Alabama's playing LSU. Suddenly, a ton of money in the state of Ohio comes in on LSU. Now, LSU is one of the best teams in all of college baseball. And 2 giant bets out of the state of Ohio come in on the LSU Tigers for their game against Alabama. Well, because we have regulations in place, as we should, red flags went up. This is an unusual amount of money to be bet on college baseball, especially on a game involving 2 teams from the South and somebody in Cincinnati is betting a load of money. So red flags are thrown out. Then soon after that, after those 2 bets are placed, news comes out, breaking news, that Alabama's top pitcher has been scratched. Not going to pitch on Friday night. So all of a sudden, LSU is an even bigger favorite. They eventually win that game. No one's any the wiser, but the red flags were raised. Come Monday, the state of Ohio says no more bets will be taken in our state on Alabama baseball. On Wednesday, the state of New Jersey comes out and says, we're not taking bets on Alabama baseball. On Thursday, Pennsylvania comes out, says, we're not taking any wagers on Crimson Tide baseball. Why? Well, it turns out the accusation is that Brad Bohannon gave some inside info. He didn't place the bets, but he was a part of the bets. And Alabama has fired him. We are told that no players are involved. I bring all this up because it's just one little dot on the sporting board. And of course, situations like Calvin Ridley get a lot more attention, or what was it, about a month ago with Detroit, Jameson Williams. But here is a coach, a guy who has control, who can scratch pitchers, who can sit guys out of the everyday lineup, who can make pitching changes, who can call for a bunt, give up an out whenever he wants. That's what a manager. Here's a manager accused of giving inside information. Now, I will say up the top, the system worked. Again, the system worked. The regulations worked. A week later, this guy doesn't have a job. This isn't a 6-month investigation. They were able to get down to it. You got to have these things occur. Unfortunately, you do. What's going on in the NFL with Williams, what happened to Ridley, what's happening now with Bohannon, these things have got to occur. And there have to be penalties. Because this is the fear of something I think many of us have been yelling about for 3 decades. Why can't I bet on sports? Well, the big fear was always things like this would happen. Players would get involved in gambling. Coaches would get involved in gambling. And there was always the argument of, well, why would millionaire players ever try to risk their career by winning an extra 10 grand? It has nothing to do with the money they already have in the bank. It's an addiction. It's a sickness. It's a vibe you get from winning money quickly. And whether you're rich or poor, some people just can't quit it. Brad Bohannon with Alabama, he probably doesn't need the money. I don't know what he's making, but I'm guessing it's $250,000, $300,000 at least. He doesn't need the money. Maybe he's just doing a favor for his friend. Maybe it had nothing to do with Brad Bohannon making money. Maybe quite simply, he was talking to a buddy in Cincinnati and told him before he told anybody, yeah, we're not going to have our ace pitcher tonight. Maybe he said it that way. He wasn't even involved in the bet. But you know what? You can't get that information. Not anymore. Not when we're allowing this. So these are things that maybe in the grand scheme you think don't matter. But if you climb the ladder here, what matters about sports is competition. We all think it's a fair playing field. We're there because who knows what can happen, right? That's something we all buy into when we watch an event or go to an event or pay money to an event. This idea that anything can happen and that we're playing on a level playing field, right? That's the idea. Now that we have legalized wagering and gambling and all that stuff, this stuff has got to be followed. This stuff has got to be paid attention to. And it's important that when it happens, we tell you about it because they're trying to clean things up. Overall, as far as we know, nothing is awful with sports wagering and gambling. Guys have been caught. Guys have been punished. NFL guys, college baseball guys. But just thought we'd give you an update. Doesn't matter how much money you make. There's always the attraction of helping out a friend, helping out a family member. Oh, this inside information isn't going to change it. It does. Got to keep it level. Got to keep it on the level. Got to keep it on the up and up, if you will, with all these sports. And, of course, with allowing any sort of wagering on college sports, it opens up a whole other can of worms. Because you got a lot of immature 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, hanging out with their buddies in college, people that have nothing to do with sports, but hey, they're all into getting an easy buck. They're all hanging around these players. So this is not the first, nor will it be the last, but certainly something to bring up here about Brad Bohannon. 5 years at Alabama, and in effect, he threw it all away for a single bet. And we don't know all the facts there, but they must have been strong enough and heavy enough to send him packing as Alabama made that decision yesterday. Let's go to item number 2 on what matters. NBA, not the playoffs. I want to talk about the reality of the NBA. Yesterday, the Milwaukee Bucks fired Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer won them an NBA title less than 24 months ago. The Bucks had won a title in 1971. Then they had to wait 50 years to win a title in 2021. Mike Budenholzer was the head coach of that Bucks team. Today, he doesn't have a job. Why doesn't he have a job? Well, it has nothing to do with winning. Over the last 5 years, they have the best winning percentage in all the NBA. The Milwaukee Bucks do. Over the past 5 years, all of these with Mike Budenholzer as their head coach, they have the most playoff victories in those 5 years. Just this season, the Bucks have the best record in the entire NBA. And yet yesterday they fired their coach. Why? Oh, why? Well, he was fired because in the first round this year, the Bucks were upset by the Heat. Mike Budenholzer, right after that upset, talked about the difficult circumstances losing in the first round to Miami.
Do you view this season as a failure?
I respect the question. I understand the question. This team has incredibly high expectations. John Horst has put together an amazing roster. The ownership's done what they're supposed to do. We made a push. We were the number 1 seed. But all that matters is the playoffs. And so I think we're just disappointed. I would not use that word. We're disappointed. We're frustrated. It hurts.
And you're fired. That was about a week and a half ago with Coach Budenholzer. And we should note, this came out after the fact, but it's wild. Mike Budenholzer has 3 brothers. One of them actually passed away during that NBA playoff series against Miami. Passed away, I think, around game 4. Nobody knew. He coached right through it. Had died in a car accident, of all things. So there was a lot going on with Milwaukee. That was immediately after the Game 7 loss. Why does this matter? It's crazy that you can be that successful at that level. You give the city, the franchise, something they haven't had in 50 years, and it doesn't even buy you 24 months. And there's a part of me that gets it. 5 years, didn't end well this year. The window's kind of closing. I mean, they've got salary cap issues. Yes, they still have Giannis. Like, that's all great. But they got other issues. I was looking at it today. They have 6 players under contract for next year. You have a 14-man roster. So that leaves them 8 players, 8 spots to still fill on this roster. They got like $19 million to do it. Now, there's a lot of financial maneuvering that can take place in the NBA. But like Chris Middleton, who's probably their second best player after Giannis, maybe third, if you want to throw Drew Holiday ahead of him. Middleton has a player option for like $40 million next year. So it's a team that has had crazy success. Again, best record in the NBA this year. But they're probably a team whose window is very close to closing. And that's how all the sports world works. And so I get it from the aspect of we need a fresh voice. We're going into a different stage of this franchise, all that stuff. But man, you talk about success and proven and winning titles, winning games. Nobody in the league had a better winning percentage over the 5 years that he was the head coach. I mean, they won almost 70% of their regular season games. And he'll get another job, so let's not feel too awful for him. But it's not going to be in Milwaukee. And that's the reality, man. Like the running gag in the NBA, if you win NBA Coach of the Year, it's really just your 12-month notice that you're going to be fired. Because the track record of guys who win that Coach of the Year honor, they're like out of a job within 12 to 15 months, sometimes even sooner. Mike Budenholzer, out of a job today. Let's move to item number 3. We'll actually go on to the field of play for what matters next. We'll go up to Toronto, Canada, where the Florida Panthers, as an 8 seed, got another victory, this one coming in game 2. They got a quick goal early in the third period to put them up.
It Matthews lost it as Losterainen created the turnover. Here's Tkachuk to Lundell. Return to Tkachuk, looking across. Forsling scores!
The Maple Leafs don't find him, and a couple of sloppy turnovers by the Toronto Maple Leafs have resulted in goals by the Florida Panthers. Little saucer pass there, give and go, Tkachuk, and then he finds his man on the weak side. He had two options on that side. He had Lundell, who gave him the give and go. He goes to Forsling.
Should say early in the second period there as the goal goes in. Third period then belonged to the Florida Panther goalie, Sergei Bobrovsky. He was kind of doing some headstands in the final 20 minutes.
Games 3 and 4 against Tampa. Bunting to the front, and it went right through Bobrovsky, who somehow managed to not deflect that puck into his own net. Was laying on his back. Riley was on top of him. And it's Tavares, stopped by Bobrovsky. Nylander sent him in alone. Opened up a lane for a dangerous hockey player. Nylander, here's Tavares closing in. Shoulder save, Bobrovsky off his left arm. On home ice here to start this series. Slipping through is Nylander. Nylander from an angle goes to the backhand, and Bobrovsky comes up with another incredible save.
It has been the Nylander show here. I mean, individually, one-on-one, it's a little bit of a 3-on-2 right there. He does have a drop pass available to him with Ryan O'Reilly, but he holds on to it, shows patience. Montour is trying his best. Do I take the pass? Do I stay up? Do I cheat?
Big third period for Sergei Bobrovsky. Panthers win it 3-2. They're now up 2-0 in that NHL playoff series, and they're back to Florida this weekend. Bobrovsky gave up a couple of goals like within an early 3-minute span of the first period. After that, nothing. Finished the game with 35 saves on 37 shots. He looked great. And this is the NHL playoffs. If you're not familiar with it, if you could just tell me going into the postseason, who's going to be the one goalie that just goes bonkers and plays outside his skull for the month of April and May? Who's going to be that guy? If you tell me that guy, that's who I'm putting my money on. And it happens almost every single year. Now, it doesn't always end up with the guy lifting the chalice above his head. Sometimes they don't even make the Stanley Cup Finals. But I'm telling you, man, in this sport, a hot goalie is what you want. It is more important than anything else. It's way more important than home ice advantage. It's way more important than your seeding. Sergei Bobrovsky has had good years. This year, he was so-so. But he's looking really good at the right time. They defeated Boston in 7 games. They're up 2-0 here on Toronto. You got a hot goaltender, and you stand a chance. I mentioned Game 3. It's on Sunday, 6:30 Eastern. The series odds for the Panthers and the Leafs have totally switched. Right now, Florida is minus 320 to take this series, and Toronto is plus 250. As we continue on the 5 things that matter, let's go to item number 4. Let's go to the world of baseball. Let's go to Fenway Park. I am not a believer in the Boston Red Sox. I was not a believer coming into the year. Honestly, I'm still not a believer now, but I can tell you this. They caught my eye this week with a 4-game sweep of the Toronto Blue Jays. Last night, they posted 11 runs in finishing off the sweep of the visitors.
Oh, he's going to crack this one. That's high and deep. Way back toward the triangle, and that ball's gone. Yoshida with number 6. Red Sox lead at 1-0. Boy, he is showing true power. Plus a 14-game hitting streak. Good.
First and third.
This would be a great spot for Raffy to bust out as he'll drive that one. Rips it down to the corner, and that ball strikes the wall. Keeps on rolling. 2 runs are going to score. Raffy's into second. He'll stop there with a rocket of a double. And the Red Sox are on top 6-0. That brings up Raphael. High fly ball, right field deep. Back. Gone. Raffy with a 2-run shot.
And as you can see, home run number 150 for Rafael Devers. 11-5, the victory. And again, all 4 games, all 4 in Boston, all 4 were victories for the Boston Red Sox. Want to thank NESN for providing the footage there. Here's the thing with Boston. I'm still not a believer. I don't like their pitching staff. Overall, I think their lineup's a little thin. what has happened is in the last 2 weeks, two guys have gone nuts for this offense. And they were two guys. One wasn't even a part of this team for the first 3 weeks of the season. The second guy got off to a very slow start this year. Now, that second guy is Masataka Yoshida. Now, we talked about him on the 5-pack a little less than 2 weeks ago. Remember the Red Sox were in Milwaukee? Yoshida had that big Sunday afternoon, and we touched on it. It was part of our 5 things that matter. Is this the start of Yoshida getting comfortable? Well, check out the last 2 weeks. Here's Masahaka Yoshida. 5 homers, 16 RBIs, a dozen runs scored. He is hitting over 450. His OPS is over 1,300. So he's been critical. The other guy is Jarren Duran. Didn't even make the team out of spring training. But the rest of the lineup was struggling. A couple of injuries. He gets called up. Here's what he's done. 13 games, 20 hits. 13 games, 3 steals, 2 homers, 10 runs scored, OPS above 1,100. Those two guys, Yoshida, Duran, they're brand new pretty well to the team. Yoshida was signed in the offseason. Duran just called up, playing well. And if they hit, you can hang. I don't think they have the pitching. Tonight, Chris Sale, one of those pitchers that they absolutely have to have. He's been probably so-so at best this year. He's going to be on the hill against Zach Wheeler. Boston in Philly. First of 3 games beginning later tonight. Finally, our 5th item that matters today, the NFL. We're keeping you guessing, right? From college baseball to the NBA. Sprinkle in a little hockey, then a little baseball. Now we'll hit you with some football. News coming out yesterday that the Buffalo Bills will get a new stadium. Everything's been approved. Let's look at the old stadium first. Kind of a dump. At least in the manner of what NFL stadiums are. This is an old joint. Okay, this is a really old joint when it comes to NFL standards. They've actually been working on a stadium probably for the last decade. What has changed is now the team is winning, so it's a lot easier to get your money. Their new stadium, and I think Heather has some photos here. The new place is going to be just across the street in Orchard Park, New York. It's going to cost $1.4 billion, and I mentioned that now people are willing to pay for a winning team. $850 million in public money going to that new stadium. There it is again. And you might have saw those giant buffaloes. I like that. This is right across the street from the old place. So looks like Buffalo is going to get a state-of-the-art kind of joint. It's set to be complete in time for the 2026 season. So we got 23, 24, 25, 3 more years at the old place. By the time we get to 2026, Josh Allen's getting old, right? Getting old. Now, I will say it's very happy times in Buffalo because understand, we've all heard about the Bills Mafia. Let's just remind you that the fans, these are Buffalo fans who are getting a brand new stadium to enjoy. Again, it's going to cost almost $1.5 billion. And here's an example of the fans that will be enjoying the new palace of the Buffalo Bills. That's old footage, but it's kind of normal footage for the Bills Mafia. You see that, and the county, and the state, and the city, they say, yeah, let's give these guys a new stadium. Let's spend $1.5 billion. The Mafia. They do that pretty well every game, right? Throwing fans through flaming tables. I went to a Bills game, and a WWE event broke out. That's kind of what occurs there. Okay, those are the 5 things that matter to me on this Friday. When we return, 5 things that will matter tonight and even into tomorrow. We're getting ready for a weekend. I'm not going to be here on Saturday, but there is something I want to send your eyes towards on Saturday. We'll talk about it next. Stay with us. More of the 5-pack right here on the Better Sports Network.
The Las Vegas Raiders have traded up to 35, and they give up the 38th overall pick. In addition, a 5th-round pick goes to Indianapolis as the Colts trade down. The pick is in. And, Coop, your top 2 tight ends, best tight ends available, are now off the board as Michael Mayer is going to be the Darren Waller replacement in Las Vegas, catching balls from Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe somebody else in the future. But Michael Mayer is off the board. The Raiders have traded up. And I always look at this, too, from like dynasty fantasy football standpoint. I always like the guys that are traded up for. Michael Mayer gets traded up for as he is off the board now at pick 35. He goes to the Raiders. How does he fit in this system? Not only with Jimmy Garoppolo, but also Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, some significant pass catchers there, including Hunter Renfrow now.
Eric, I love that you pointed that out because that's the part of the draft that people forget when they're doing their analysis. They think about the draft capital, they think about the landing spot, they forget the draft narrative, right? This proves to us that the Raiders, at the very least, had Michael Mayer as high as Sam Laporta, or maybe even higher, because they're looking around and saying, all right, that guy's gone. We have to get this guy right now. And this guy probably is a better fit for what Josh McDaniel wants to do. He's used to Rob Gronkowski. He's used to Hunter Henry, these two-way tight ends that can block and run routes down the seam. Sam Laporta is not going to do that. He's only 240 pounds. This guy is your prototypical real-life tight end. That's why a lot of people were saying he's the best real tight end in the draft. Clearly, pass catching is at a premium. That's why Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta went first. But this guy's going to fit really well into that scheme. My question is, when does he become fantasy relevant? Because the vast majority of tight ends that are fantasy relevant are top 2 targets on their team, with Devontae Adams there and Jacoby Myers there,
that's not happening.
And Hunter Renfrow there. I mean, when does it happen, Moose? How long do we have to wait?
Yeah, forever. It might be a while. I mean, when you look at it, but I do think he's a great fit.
Welcome me back into the 5-pack on this Friday. Kyle Elfrink hanging out with you on the Better Sports Network. Heard the guys there talking about best ball, talking about Meyer going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Want to remind you, later tonight, 7 o'clock, the Campus to Canton guys get rolling here at Better Sports Network. Those guys, of course, will have some thoughts on the NFL draft because they've been spending the last 3 years talking about those guys who've just been drafted into the pro ranks. Additionally, I would guess they're going to start getting you set for the big names that you're going to care about a year from now. So join the guys. A lot of college football talk coming your way. Campus to Canton tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern. As we continue here on the 5-pack, it is now time for the 5 things that will matter. And we start in Phoenix, Arizona. It has been a long wait for game number 3 between the Suns and the Nuggets. Didn't hit me till I looked at this earlier today. The last game of this series was game 2. That was all the way back on Monday. It's not that long of a trip from Denver to Phoenix. So a lot of time off for these two teams. First 2 games went to Denver. And honestly, there wasn't much debate in either of those 2 games. Denver won the first game by double digits. They won the second game by double digits. Suns only scored 87 points in game 2. And of course, the big news coming out of game 2, and it will affect the rest of the series, no Chris Paul. Chris Paul dealing with a groin injury, so he is not available tonight. Not expected to be available for game 4, game 5. Game 6, game 7, probably not. So this is a Suns team that not only is down 2 games to none, but they're also without Chris Paul. The good news is they're back home, and the good news is they still have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I don't feel a sweep is imminent, but they certainly have the deck stacked against them. Michael Malone is the head coach for Denver. He talked about going into the Valley of the Sun tonight with a 2-0 edge.
Yeah, this is 5 years in a row for us. The fact that we've won playoff series. We've been up this postseason. We've been down before. We've gone to a bunch of game 7s, and our guys are, especially our core guys, are very comfortable with, what the playoffs are about. They don't shy away from that. It's a big stage, and we all understand that regular season is great, but names and reputations and careers are built on what you do in the postseason. And we have quite a few guys in our team that have really thrived in the postseason, and hopefully that can continue.
10 o'clock tonight, you can catch that game number 3 over on ESPN. Phoenix is actually favored by 4 this evening. Kind of like the Suns to get a victory tonight. Maybe a big effort from both Booker and Durant. Series odds are heavy on the Denver Nuggets. Right now, they are minus 350 to win at least 2 of the next 5 games. The Suns to come all the way back, again, down 2-0, plus 450. So if you're a Phoenix backer, if you believe in Durant, if you believe in Booker and the Suns, pretty good money right now. Because if they win tonight, that plus 450 probably falls to about plus 300, maybe plus 280. So now's the time. So much of wagering is timing. And now might be the time if you think the Suns can come back. Let's go to our second item that will matter. The Pittsburgh Pirates. We've talked a lot about the Pittsburgh Pirates, have we not, on this 5-pack? Why are we talking about them? Because to a certain point, they are one of the biggest stories in baseball. Pittsburgh, first place, 20 victories on May 5th. Are you kidding me? Well, it's all true. The Pirates are playing overall good baseball. But lately, it's not been very good for the Pirates. A few days back, right here on the 5-pack, I sat here and I said, okay, here we go. Pittsburgh, you've been playing good baseball. People care about you. You're getting great results. You're first place in the Central. I said, okay, go to Tampa and do something. Go on the road with the best team in baseball right now and show me something, Pittsburgh. Well, I hate to report to you that thus far the Pirates have not shown up. They get swept by the Tampa Bay Rays. Here's a few of last night's negative highlights for Pittsburgh.
Here is Taylor Walls, switch hitter batting left-handed. The 2-2 to Walls, fly ball deep to right field, way up into the air. To the wall goes Connor Joe, and it's gone. Home run. On a 2-2 pitch, Taylor Walls hooks one around the right field foul pole, and the Rays take a 1-0 lead.
Randy Arozarena is set to lead off.
Grounded into a double play his first turn.
Fly ball right field. That's got some carry to it. Joe's going to go to the wall. That baby's gone. Opposite field home run for Randy Arozarena, his 8th home run of the year. Both Rays runs have come on the long ball.
Zach Eflin on for the 5th at only 39 pitches.
Ooh, and strike 3 called. Froze him right there to pick up the strikeout. That's number 5.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out, nobody on 5th inning. 2-0 Rays. Eflin pitches. Strike 3 called. Fastball on or slightly just off the outside corner.
Walls, Arozarena, Eflin. It was another easy victory for the Rays. Are the Pirates walking the plank? Are they? Got swept. They scored a grand total of 4 runs in the 3 games. The other day I was talking about, wow, McCutchen and Sawinski and Brian Reynolds. Those 3 guys, Sawinski, Reynolds, and McCutchen, went 5 for 30. The other day, before this series began, I said, okay, it's kind of cool. Pittsburgh's not giving up home runs. Like one of the best in baseball at avoiding the home run. Now you get to take on Tampa, who leads baseball in home runs. Rays hit 6 home runs in the 3 games. So before facing Tampa, Pittsburgh's pitching staff had given up 23 homers in 29 games. They gave up 6 in 3 games this week against the Rays. Here's what matters moving forward. You still lead the NL Central. 1.5 games over the Milwaukee Brewers. Tonight, you got another showdown. This is kind of like a test week for Pittsburgh. You know, we came out of the weekend previous. It's like, wow, Pittsburgh, look at them. Well, you go to Tampa, you get swept. They're back home tonight taking on Toronto, another playoff team. Now, the Blue Jays just got swept in Boston. So this is not a team that is flying high, that is arriving in Steeltown. They're not. Pirates are struggling. Blue Jays are struggling. They're going to get rolling tonight. It's Rich Hill against Chris Bassett. 6:35 for the first pitch. First of 3 between the Blue Jays and the Pirates. So let's see. You failed your first test, Pittsburgh. Let's see how you do in test number 2 this weekend against the Blue Jays. Staying with baseball, another big series this week, and it's huge. And it again involves the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa gets to stay home, and guess who's coming to town? Ah, those evil Bronx Bombers. New York Yankees are headed to Tampa. Check this out. If the Yankees lose tonight, they will be 10 games out in the American League East. 10! Now, granted, they're in a division with the team that is the hottest in baseball. Tampa's world beaters right now. But to think to yourself that it's one thing to be last place New York Yankees. It's a whole other thing if you're last place and you're double-digit games back. If Tampa wins tonight, Yankees are 10 out. Now, they're still above 500. They're 17-15. But that ain't enough in this division. It just isn't. Now, thankfully, there's the wild card and 7 playoff spots, so I don't think anybody's saying the Yankees are cooked. But think about this. The favorite for the AL East, Yankees were. They could be 10 games out before we get to like the 6th week of the season. That's crazy. And again, they could win tonight and lose the next 2, and they're 10 games out. 6:40 tonight, Brito against Chirinos. Tomorrow is 4:10 in the afternoon. That's going to be Herman against Rasmussen. Sunday, Garrett Cole's going to pitch for the Yankees. He's actually been moved up in the rotation. They wanted to get him out here against the Rays. That's how important the Yankees see this series. So they moved him up a day. 1:40 is the first pitch on Sunday afternoon. Garrett Cole going for the Yankees. TBD right now for the Tampa Bay Rays. Let's move to our 4th item that matters. Got the Yankees and the Rays playing. You got the Pirates and the Blue Jays playing. You got Houston and Seattle playing this weekend. Dodgers and Padres start up a series. A lot of good baseball out there. But I don't want you to overlook some of the bad baseball that's out there, like epically bad. Tonight in Kansas City, Missouri, it will be a battle of Oakland and Kansas City. The A's and the Royals. Should I call them the bumbling A's and the forgettable Kansas City Royals? Combined record entering this series tonight between these two teams is 14-50. That is a pace over 162 games. They're 14-50. Over 162 games, that would be like 35 wins. That would be what, a 35-127 record? The worst ever. Now, I got to say, it's very early to be making this proclamation, but we might be in the midst of one of these two teams like literally having the worst record in the history of baseball. We might be there. Oakland or Kansas City. The good news is they get to face each other this weekend, and somebody has to win. My bet is that they will split the first 2 games, and then there'll be like a rainer. So they both go 1-1. Oakland, by the way, still, this is crazy. What are we, 32, 33 games in? Oakland still has not gotten a victory by a starting pitcher all year. All year, they haven't gotten a victory. It's crazy to think about. Kansas City has 5 regular parts of their starting 9 that are hitting below 210. Like 3 of them are in the 100s. Pretty ugly for both teams. So they get going tonight. So we got a lot of good baseball this weekend. A lot of interesting series, great players, all that. We also have the A's and the Royals. And to me, that matters. So give a little love to the. You're not going to watch another game after like June 1st between these two teams, involving these two teams. So tonight, give them some love. Finally, our 5th thing that will matter. I'm going to cheat a bit, just a bit on a Friday. Let's look ahead to Saturday, not so much tonight, because tomorrow evening we get to hear this. Yes, running number 149, I think it is, of the Kentucky Derby. Tomorrow night, post time for the big race. They have races all day. But post time for the big race is 6:57 Eastern, which to me seems really late. But 6:57 Eastern, NBC will, of course, have it. It's always fun. Always a great time. The favorite is Forte, 3-1 favorite. No favorite, though, has won since 2018. So he's a pretty prohibitive favorite. But weather should be fine. They were expecting rain earlier in the week, but we should be good. Now, I do truly enjoy the Kentucky Derby. I've been lucky enough to go once. I dug up some old photos. I sent them to Heather Klein. These are from 2005, when yours truly was lucky enough to attend the Kentucky Derby. Look at that guy. Oh, my gosh, the world is ahead of him. Look at that. At the Derby in the infield back in 2005. With my ever-popular Houston Colt 45s hat. That's in the infield. I said this yesterday. If you just show up at the Derby, they'll get you in. Like, I didn't have a ticket that day. I walked in, paid $30, and boom, I'm there all day. Gamble to your heart's content. Back in 2005, I looked this up. Let me make sure I got this right. May 7th of 2005, Giacomo ended up winning. There's another photo from 2005. Like I said, man, you can enjoy everything out there. Don't get down on the end. There's my spot. That is the race. Giacomo the winner. Giacomo was 50-1 in this race. No, I did not bet on Giacomo. This is the back stretch is where we were for the big race. So this would be, let's see, turn number 3 thereabouts. And you can see they had a television screen. Now the television screen is like, I don't know, 5-6 times bigger than that one. But we can watch the race and you follow it on the TV screen. It's a hell of a good day. I would recommend anybody go there. I was one of 156,000 people there. There is my friend Melissa. She lived down there with her husband. She was a trooper that day. She was like, I want to say almost 8 months pregnant at the time. She spent the entire day at the Kentucky Derby infield. And you can see, just look behind us. You can see what goes down in the Kentucky Derby infield. I don't even think that was at the end of the day. I don't believe. It was late in the day, but not at the end of the day. It was a great time. And tomorrow is race number 149, a tradition that for me is one of the best in all of sports. So if you're there, have fun. If you've never been there, make plans. I would recommend this. If you ever want to go, you got to start booking things like now for next year. And the best thing to do is to find somebody who lives in Louisville. Like I said, in 2005, I had friends. My buddy was in dental school in Louisville in 2005. And just this year, good friends of mine have just moved to Louisville. Now, I'm going to give them this year off, but next year I'm coming. Believe you me, next year I'm coming for that Derby day. Ooh, that'll be race 150. Woo! That may be a tough ticket. I bet they'll push 170,000 maybe. That infield will be spilling over next year for race 150. Again, tomorrow night, 6:57 Eastern is the post time there. Okay, those are the 5 things that will matter. What matters next? We're going to do a pack rip. We've never done 1990 Upper Deck Baseball. We do it next right here on the Better Sports Network.
Happy Derby Day, everybody. We're almost there. One sleep away. Tomorrow, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. The greatest 2 minutes in sport. The Run for the Roses, 1.25 miles. 23-year-olds are going to go out there and go postward. 6:57 tomorrow night. And even though I'm a horse player and I love thoroughbred racing, you at home might not be the biggest racing fan that there is. But you know what? Tomorrow's for everybody because it's one of those events where you circle it on the calendar, you get into it. There aren't so many of those dates left for thoroughbred racing. The Kentucky Derby, which you could make the argument is the world's most important race, certainly is one of them. And what do we do here? Well, you got to make a selection. I'll tell you who I like. And everybody's going to give you a pick on the Kentucky Derby. I'm going with the 14, Angel of Empire. Trained by Brad Cox, ridden by Flavion Pratt, coming out of the Arkansas Derby, won the Risen Star. I think he has all the looks of a Kentucky Derby winner. Love the daylight victory in the Arkansas Derby as well. And you're getting 8-1 on the morning line. Certainly you have to give a lot of respect to the two two of the three Pletcher trainees, and that being Forte, your morning line favorite, and the second choice, and being Tappet Trice at 5-1 on the morning line. I think it's a top-heavy Kentucky Derby. I don't think quality goes all the way through the field, but I'm going to go with an 8-1 shot on the morning line. You might get a little bit better odds tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening as well. Give me the 14, Angel of Empire. What a name. And hopefully he's the winner of the 149th running of the Kentucky Derby. Check out the comments below for a special offer from our friends from Fantasy Alarm.
Time now for the Daily Pack Rip on the 5-Pack with Kyle Elfrink.
Yes, even we are getting into the spirit of all things Cinco de Mayo. We welcome you back to the 5-Pack. Coming up, we will rip open this pack. You know, since Moose just gave you his pick, I'll give you mine for tomorrow's Derby. I'm going to go with King's Barn at 12-1. Another Pletcher trained horse. 3 races, 3 wins. Now, the scary thing is those are the only 3 races that King's Barn has ever run. 12-1 are the current odds. The other thing is always bet on the jockey. Now, in the Kentucky Derby, you can't really do that because all the jockeys are like at the top of their game. It's the best of the best. But if you're ever at a local racetrack, bet the jockeys. Check out you don't know much about the horses. None of them are studs that you'll run into at Louisville or anything. Bet the jockeys. So I'll bet the jockey here. Jose Ortiz is one of the best in the business. So give me King's Barn 12-1. My favorite long shot, 20-1 confidence game. So that's where I stand on the Derby. Okay, let us get to our pack rip. Today, we are opening up 1990 Upper Deck Baseball. This is year number 2 of Upper Deck. Now, I said, hey, it's not as popular nor as famous as year number 1 of Upper Deck, 1989, with the famous Griffey Jr. rookie card. All in all, they aren't many great individual cards, but what this set has that nobody before ever had, ever. And then as soon as Upper Deck did it in 1990, then everybody did it. What is that thing? Autograph inserts. Reggie Jackson with 2,500 randomly packed autograph inserts. I think we got a photo of the Reggie card here. There it is. Pretty awesome. You get the number. I mean, it's just awesome. That is a great card. That is I want it. I want that Reggie card. So this was the first time ever that trading cards had done this. There have been inserts before, things to chase, things, but never an autograph. And nowadays, that's like the whole world, man. And very soon after Upper Deck did it, everybody was doing it. Now, the other thing here, see if you can read this on the red. What's that say? It says 1991 season tickets to the stadium of your choice. Now, how do you win? So I checked this out. I looked on the back of the pack. If you can guess, remember, this is going into 1991. Or, 1990, I guess. If you can guess the ALCS and NLCS playoff teams for 1990 and the World Series champion. So you had to do both those things. You had to guess the 2 teams to make the playoffs in the AL and the 2 teams to do it in the NL. And you had to say who was going to win the World Series. So I looked it up. 1990, what we had was the Cincinnati Reds winning the World Series, which I doubt many people had. Oakland and Boston met in the playoffs in the AL, and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in the NL. I don't know if anybody won the season tickets to the stadium of their choice in 1991, but you would have had. Now, Oakland would have been easy. Oakland being one of the AL teams. Boston was pretty good in the AL East there, but not a giant favorite. But again, you'd get some Boston guesses. Cincinnati was pretty random, and nobody was saying Cincinnati was a World Series contender going into 1990. So I wonder if anybody nailed the guess on the NLCS, ALCS, and World Champion for 1990. Anyway, this will be fun. Year number 2 of Upper Deck. So let's see what we got. I can't sit here and complain about the cards like I usually do because, hey, it's Upper Deck. Cards were always good. Cards were sharp. Let's see if we get one of those 2,500 Reggie Jackson autographs, right? We will start with Ken Howell, pitcher for Philadelphia. Now, you'll notice in 89 Upper Deck, I'm trying to remember here. I think in 89 Upper Deck, see the baseline at the top of the card here? It's a baseline. I think it ran, what side? I think on this side was the baseline in 89, and they put it at the top in 90, and then they ran it on the other side for 91. Like the first 3 years, they ran the baselines. So here is Ken Howell pitching at Giants Stadium. They always had the chain link fence in the background. Ken Howell looks like a fun guy, man. Oh, yeah. Got some Jerry curl action going there. Go Ken Howell. Oh, here's a good one. At the height of his powers, Will the Thrill. Will the Thrill. I get it. Will always had like the 5 o'clock shadow, but not here, man. He literally must have just shaved. Absolutely. Will, of course, with one of the sweetest swings you will ever see. There he is, watching a pitch come in. Love Will Clark. He was my older brother's favorite player. Interesting note, when my older brother got married, and he has been married, I think, coming up on 23 years. Mr. Craig Elfrink's been married. On his wedding date, I was lucky enough, because I was working a lot more in the field of play back in the day. I had Will Clark tape and record a happy wedding wish for my brother and his wife. Will Clark was with the Cardinals at the time. He was very happy to do that. We played it at the wedding. Will Clark wishing them a happy marriage. And what do you know? Will Clark is 1 for 1. They're still married after all these years. Brother's favorite player. And I got his favorite player to wish him happy nuptials on their wedding day. So that's a good card there in 1990. I may have to give that to my brother. I don't know if he's got that card. We move next to Mark Lemke. Mark Lemke, I think I've said this before, gave all of us little white guys who played infield hope. I was one of them. Mark Lemke was one of those guys, part of those very good Braves teams in the early 90s. I mean, just look at this guy. Does this guy play second base, or does this guy run science experiments? What are we doing here, Mark Lemke? Come on. Woo! Back in the day, you could get away with that. Gerald Clark, I mentioned the great action photos. Look at that. Gerald Clark signing autographs. I don't know if anybody held on to their Gerald Clark autograph. I mean, he, at this point, played 23 games in 2 years. Don't think he ever became anything. Certainly not with the Padres. One of the better names in all of the 80s. Spike Owen, former Boston Red Sox. Went to the Expos. Pretty decent middle infielder. Here's a guy who, anytime you say his name, all anybody says is, oh, yeah, that's the guy who hit 50 home runs, and then we never heard from him again. Brady Anderson of the Baltimore Orioles. Now, this was, man, he hit 4 home runs in 1989. So the 50 home run season was still to come for Brady Anderson. But he can always lay claim to a 50 home run season from the left side of the plate at Camden Yards. Mike Bilecki, always a fun name to say. I think it was Bilecki is what they called him. He was a guy who lasted forever with the Cubs, but never did much of anything. You know, what's interesting about this is you see the green ivy there behind Mike Bilecki. So that means it's June, July, or August, because that's when the ivy grows. This guy's still wearing long sleeves. Come on. Never trust a pitcher who in the middle of summer is wearing long sleeves. And look, even here, green ivy, long sleeves. No wonder Mike Bilecki never became anything. Here is the Candy Man, Mr. Knuckleball, Tom Candiotti. That was the guy for me that was Mr. Knuckleball. For a lot of people, Charlie Huff, the Negro Brothers, Tim Wakefield. Tom Candiotti was my knuckleball guy. That's all he threw. I dropped a hologram here, so let me pull this up. That's another thing Upper Deck was famous for, the holograms. Can you see that? Let's see if we can get you an angle here. Dodgers, can you see that? Dodgers hologram? Can't really see it. But anyway, they threw these in. You get a different team. They're not worth anything, so I'll give it to my son. He loves stickers, so he's going to get a shiny gray one tonight with the Dodgers. One of the better closers in baseball, Rick Aguilera, came over from the Mets. He was a starter with the Mets, and the Twins moved him to the bullpen, and he was very successful out of the bullpen. But yeah, it's interesting. He was nothing but a starter. He had 7 saves with the Mets in 89, then was traded to Minnesota. In about 1990, the year of this card, he became the big fireballer, one of the what they call those guys, the Rolaids Relief Man. That was the big award they'd give relievers, the Rolaids Relief Award. We get a checklist. This is something Upper Deck ripped off. They weren't always innovative. We talked before about Donruss and the Diamond King cards. Beautiful paintings. Always loved them from Donruss. Upper Deck tried the same thing. This is the checklist card for the Toronto Blue Jays. This is George Bell. Yeah, George Bell there. Pretty decent paintings, but man, not like the Donruss ones. But I like that. I always thought it'd be fun to get one of these original paintings all these years later. Here's a guy who was such a bad hitter, he would take 2 bats to the plate. Kevin Elster. I kid. They don't allow 2 bats in baseball, but Kevin Elster, for some reason, at the batting cage, liked to carry around 2 bats. Don't know why. He also liked to wear a warm-up jacket. Don't know why. If you're going to swing the bat, you don't want to do it in your jacket, right? I don't know. Kevin Elster, a decent shortstop, never became what they thought he was going to become. Now, this guy was probably more known for his success in the 90s. This is the very early days of Tony Phillips, before he became like a super utility man. Went to the Tigers and had a couple of great years after he left the Oakland A's. But he was still an important part of the Bash Brothers Oakland teams. Pretty good player, kind of bounced around the infield. Had a couple of great fantasy years in the mid to late 90s. Dickie Thon. Dickie Thon. You'll never run into a name like Dickie Thon again, will you? Kind of a veteran at this point. He'd been with Philadelphia Astros, Padres, and Phillies. He wasn't much of a hitter, Dickie Thon. Decent glove. Don't know this guy. I'm guessing there's probably been a dozen of these in the history of baseball. Some dude named Dave Johnson. How many Dave Johnsons do you think there have been in Major League Baseball history? Hell, there were probably 5 Dave Johnsons just in this 1990 Upper Deck set, right? This is just one of the Dave Johnsons. And then finally, we close it down with Rod Nichols. Now, Rod Nichols never did much of anything as a middle reliever. So why is he in this set? He is in this set because, check out the card number here, card 572. There were 800 cards in this 1990 Upper Deck set. And again, 1989, it changed the world of card collecting. And so I think what Upper Deck did is they said, wow, people really like what we're shoveling down their throats. Let's give them more. So they gave them a lot more. 800 cards of 1990 Upper Deck. By far the best card we got here is the Thrill. Not even close. I mean, I'm looking at the rest of this pack. I mean, George Bell was a good player, but that doesn't count as a card. Rick Aguilera, closer. Brady Anderson had a 50 home run season. Other than Will Clark, we didn't get anybody who's that notable. Not overly notable. And our action photos are all like middle relievers. Now, I didn't show many of these back photos. Of course, Upper Deck was famous for this. So let's run through these. Gerald Clark. Spike Owen. Spike, we're not going to need you today. Don't need you in the lineup. Okay, boss, I'll sit here. Here's Mike Bilecki in his long sleeves. Can't trust him. Candiotti. You think knuckleballers like would even warm up? Do you even need to warm up as a knuckleballer? Or do you just walk out to the mound in the first inning and it's go time? I think it is. Kevin Elster playing in the infield. Tony Phillips racing down the line. Dickie Thon striking out. Some dude named Dave Johnson following through. And none of these others are all that exciting. Brady Anderson with a leadoff. We'll leave you with that. That'll do it for the Pack Rip. That'll do it for the 5-pack. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you on Monday right here on the Better Sports Network.